after his alleged support for Rwandan-backed M23 rebels. Temesgen Debisai has this report.
Joseph Kabila returned from exile to rebel-held Goma in May, months after the M23 seized several towns in the mineral-rich east of the DRC. He's accused by his successor, President Felix Tshisekedi, of backing the rebels. He's denied the charges against him and has described the government as a dictatorship. He spoke out after Congolese politicians lifted his immunity as senator for life to allow his prosecution. The M23 rebels and the government signed a ceasefire deal in Doha earlier this month, but there's been continued fighting.
The human resources boss of an American tech firm who was caught on camera embracing the company's chief executive at a Coldplay concert has resigned. The clip of Kristen Cabot and Andy Byron turning away from the camera in shock has been viewed online worldwide. Both are married to other people. The U.S. jazz musician and band leader Chuck Mangione has died. He was 84. Mangione was best known for his 1970s instrumental hit Feel So Good. During a long career based on his dazzling flugelhorn performances, he won 2 Grammy Awards and recorded 30 albums. BBC News.
Thank you very much for that news and welcome to Newsday. You're with Rob Young and Priya Rai. Coming up for you over the next half an hour, we've stories from Gaza, Haiti and the United States. And in our sport today, Sarah Manai is looking to the future of Newcastle's Alexander Isak. Is a move to the English Premier League champions on the cards?
United Nations is warning the hunger crisis in Gaza has never been so dire. Parents are watching their young children waste away, unable to find any food for them. Yet hopes for a ceasefire and the resulting surge in aid have dimmed. The United States and Israel say they've recalled their delegations from court to try to find a ceasefire in Gaza. President Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff has accused the Palestinian militant group Hamas of failing to act in good faith. Hamas said it had given its final response to the most recent ceasefire proposal. But at a US State Department briefing in Washington, D.C., the BBC's Tom Bateman challenged the government's spokesman Tommy Pigott on the decision to withdraw from the talks.
Can you help us understand why at this moment, when you see the conditions on the ground in Gaza, and now mass starvation, the US is deciding this is the moment to walk away from these talks?
This is not a question of what the United States is doing, it's a question of what Hamas has done. This is a response to what Hamas has done. Continually,
the position of many of the Israeli families.
Israel has long accepted the deal on the table, and Hamas has long rejected it. I mean, this is about, it's never about been our commitment to a ceasefire. That's never been the question here. We have engaged in good faith to try to achieve a ceasefire.
Meanwhile, President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will officially recognize a Palestinian state in September, the first major Western power to do so. Israel called this a reward for terrorism. 140 other countries already recognize a Palestinian state. Well, Aaron David Miller is a veteran American diplomat who has for years been deeply involved in the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. He first explained to me whether the ceasefire talks have collapsed or whether there may be another reason for the US and Israel to withdraw.
The negotiations have, over the last almost 2 years now, have only 2 speeds, slow and slow. And the closer you get to the instant where Hamas has a dwindling number of live hostages, and in return wants the redeployment and withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and end of the war, demands that this Israeli government is not prepared to meet, the tougher the negotiations become. I think in this particular case, Hamas, understanding that the Israelis are under growing pressure, has raised the ante up the number of prisoners to double the number that the Israelis initially understood they were prepared to accept, and double the number of Palestinians arrested since October 7th that the Israelis were prepared to return as part of the deal, which was 10 living hostages and roughly half of the ones who are no longer alive in exchange for a 2-month ceasefire. So it won't be the end of the war, but as we approach another interim agreement that will bring the 2 parties very close to confronting the reality that their end games, each of their end games, are mutually compatible. It's no wonder that the negotiations are toughening up, particularly on Hamas's side. I don't think this represents a collapse or a crisis. reading the situation, there's a reasonable chance that by mid-August, you'll get another interim agreement.
Do you think there will be another deal at some point too? Because Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's special envoy, said in a statement that Hamas had showed a lack of desire to reach a ceasefire in Gaza and said, we, the United States, will now consider alternative options.
It's hard to imagine right now that Hamas will return the residual number of hostages that it has, which would be roughly, if this deal goes through, 10 additional live hostages, and roughly 18 or so ones who are not alive. They want an end to the war and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. I don't think this Israeli government, this prime minister, is prepared to do that.
One big diplomatic movement has been the decision by the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, to say that France will recognize a state of Palestine. What difference does that potentially make?
You know, if the other members of the G7, the Italians, the Brits, the Germans, the Canadians, and the Americans were prepared to follow suit, you could create some traction, some additional pressure, but they're not. And I don't want to minimize the importance. It's significant, for sure. But I think that right now, any sort of negotiation to make the concept of a two-state solution is simply a thought experiment. It's more appropriate to a galaxy far, far away than harsh realities back here on planet Earth.
Does it make any practical difference, though, recognizing the state?
No, I just don't see. You have 140 of these countries who have already done so to varying degrees. And the reality is that the two most important actors here, the state of Israel and the United States, they're not the only actors, but they're critically important to actually bring two states to fruition. It's not going to have an impact, or at least the desired one.
France, though, is a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. It is a nuclear power. It is a large economy. Is that why we've seen Benjamin Netanyahu react in a pretty angry way?
Yeah, I suppose. And the Israelis will read this as a reward or incentive for Hamas. And it will prompt additional pressure by right-wing ministers to do something in response. And it certainly won't bring Israelis and Palestinians closer to what I think still is the only conceivable solution, particularly in the wake of October 7th, and that is separation through negotiation into two states.
Definitely, let's think about Aaron David now.
Well, the demands for some sort of end to the fighting in Gaza has been driven by the disastrous humanitarian situation there. Yesterday on Newsday, we had a journalist in Gaza and heard that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation had asked that women come to distribution points in Khan Yunis to collect food aid. Now, there have been daily reports of people being killed near Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid points. Images of the casualties show that it's mostly been men and boys who have gone to get food for their families. So will women go? Garda Ula is a journalist joining us now from Gaza City. Garda, first of all, can I ask what your initial response is to the idea, the announcement, the ask for women to collect food in Khan Yunis?
Yes, GHF yesterday called or invited women to go and collect some food from their site in Khan Yunis. Women there, they were responding to this invitation. We also here in Gaza City, we saw images of women. They are going there and holding bags of flour. That's what we hear and saw yesterday. Still the process go and women went to this site and had some of the flour. But one woman was killed. We didn't know what was the circumstances of shooting her, but at least one woman was killed. It's good to have women to go there. Maybe they can put in line and maybe the number will be less than men and boys who are usually waiting and sleeping in areas close to these sites, and they don't have women. They don't have the risk, or they don't have the courage, like to go and to wash themselves what this site. So we saw images of women. They are going there and they are wanting to they want to eat or to feed their kids who are starving in front of their eyes all the day.
And so from what you're hearing then and seeing, there is of course the desperation for food, so you can understand why the women might want to go from that reason or that point of view, but is there any suggestion that perhaps they may feel at all safer than men or boys might feel?
Well, the nature of women, it's like not like men. As I said, they are not like courage, or they don't take the risk as men. They just want, maybe there's something with women. They don't wash themselves toward these sites, and their number is less than men. Usually men, they are staying all the time in the streets, outside, in some areas, waiting or sleeping outside. But this is not happening for women. Women, they just go and take whatever what they have in the site. So, and as I said, the number is less than men, and their need to feed them is the most important thing for them. That's why the reason they are going there.
And so from the perspective of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the aid distribution site, why do you think they might be asking for women to go?
As we say, like, they specialize one day just for women, and this is maybe can be an indicator for the more systematic process for the GSM, like to specialize one day for men or one day for women, or they want to decrease the number of fatalities that are resulted from this shooting around the sites from the Israelis, and to decrease the number of people who got injured inside of these sites.
Thank you very much for joining us, Garda Uda, who's a journalist in Gaza City, and hopefully you were able to hear plenty of that through the phone line. As you can imagine, it's difficult often contacting people in Gaza, but to tell you what we've heard from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, it said to us that it has worked to enhance its aid distribution to ensure that women and children are able to collect food aid from its sites. 2 months ago, it says that it installed women-only lanes to ensure they are able to collect food to feed their families. And today, GHF took this mission a step further, it says, by holding women's only aid distribution. Overall, it says the effort was a major success and was great to see all the smiling faces and nods with very good, in quotation marks, being spoken to our aid workers. That's what GHF has said to us. Of course, there has been criticism of its distribution methods as well from other organisations.
You're listening to Newsday from the BBC World Service. Sarah Benayes here with your sport headline.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning. Let's start with some football news. Alexander Isak has been left out of the Newcastle squad for their pre-season tour of Asia. It's understood the striker wants to explore his options for a move away from the Premier League club. A source has told BBC that Liverpool are still interested in signing the 25-year-old. Undisputed heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk has been ordered by the World Boxing Organization to begin negotiations with mandatory challenger Joseph Parker. Both parties have 30 days to find an agreement, or the WBO will order purse bid proceeding. Next to cricket and the series ongoing between England and India, where the host had much of the play go their way on day 2 at Old Trafford yesterday in Manchester, Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett scored 166 for the first wicket, taking a huge chunk out of the tourist 358. Then Ollie Pope and Joe Root were able to take England to 225-2, 133 still behind at cycling, Tadej Pogačar took a huge step towards winning his fourth Tour de France by racing clear of rival Jonas Vingegaard as Ben O'Connor claimed victory on Thursday, stage 18. The Tour de France is ending on Sunday.
Tara, thank you, Georgia. In about half an hour, you're looking ahead to a big weekend.
Hello to Washington, where President Trump's heated pressure on Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell stepped up a gear with a rare visit to the Fed's headquarters for a major renovation project underway. BBC's Davina Gupta is joining us from Delhi to talk more about it. So, Davina, what's happened?
Hello there from Delhi. Well, tensions have been brewing between the two for some time now, and this was a rare visit of President Trump to the central bank, making him only the fourth sitting president to do so in the bank's history. And the tour opened with these two men wearing hard white hats and walking down a dimly lit hall to speak to the reporters. And here's a flavor of this encounter with Donald Trump initially referring to what he says is the cost overrun of the renovation.
So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about 3.1 billion. Went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1. And
not aware of that.
yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody from Fed.
It just came out.
Now, at this point, President Trump takes out a sheet of paper from his pocket and hands it to the Federal Reserve Chair. And here's how Jerome Powell responded seconds later when he finished reading it.
You're including the market renovation. I just added our entire capital. You just added in a third building is what that is. That's a third building.
But it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished market 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall. So,
It's not new.
What he's saying it's not new is worth noting. As provocative as this interaction was, Trump backed off the idea of firing Powell over the cost overruns of this renovation of the central bank building, because he's been frustrated that the Federal Reserve Chair has been reluctant to reduce interest rates to boost the economy. But Powell says policymakers are waiting to see how Trump's tariffs are impacting the country. And it's interesting because Trump appointed Powell in his first term, but we appointed him, and he's now set to serve till next spring. And we'll have to see how investors react to this.
Thank you very much for now, Davina.
Well, now, for the second day in a row here on Newsday, we head to Haiti in the Caribbean, not a country we hear from on the ground very often. Haiti often referred to as the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere. Gangs have taken control of most of the capital, Port-au-Prince, and the police are outnumbered and outgunned. The government authority in Haiti has all but collapsed. Cuts to US aid and compounding the crisis, leaving Haitians trapped in a daily struggle for survival. This report from the BBC's Nawal Al-Baghafi includes some upsetting testimony.
I'm in an armored vehicle with Kenyan soldiers. They've been sent in to confront the gangs who are terrorizing the city. I was here 6 months ago, and since then, the gangs have only become more organized and more powerful. Within minutes, we come under fire.
We've just been shot at by the gangs, and it seems like they've aimed for the tires. Our front tire is now flat, and so we're looking for a safe place to park and assess the damage. I mean, there's only so much that the Kenyan police can do from inside this vehicle. They are outnumbered. There are thousands of men out there that have joined the ranks of the gangs.
Ours, we are in policing, we don't eliminate. We deal, and our focus is about to deal with them and arrest.
This is Force Commander Godfrey Otunge. He leads the multinational security support mission.
As it is, we have arrested several gang members, and as we're talking today, most of them are being taken through the due process by the Asian National Police.
How many?
Because the issue is very clear.
How many?
The most important focus is that at least we arrest them so that at least the due process is followed.
But the Kenyans are no longer the only foreign fighters in town. The Haitian government has signed a contract with private military contractors from the US, fighting the gangs with drones. The intensity of the fight is driving people from their homes. Over 1 million people are displaced in Haiti, and half that number are children.
violence destroying this city. Environmental disasters and political turmoil mean that millions of people in Haiti rely on aid to survive. It's long been one of USAID's largest recipients of funding, and for the people here, it is a lifeline. But as President Trump cracks down on what he calls wasteful spending,
Very little being put to good use.
that lifeline is about to be cut.
Today you are seeing the last food we have from the US government. It has arrived from the US and is now being distributed. But we will run out, we will not have no food.
Lola Castro is the regional director for the World Food Program in Haiti.
If we stop giving food to the vulnerable women that are in displaced centers and the women that are in host families, they will have to find this food somehow. And that will make them very vulnerable, much more vulnerable they are now.
As the world begins to look away, the people here continue to suffer. Caught in a crisis, they can do little to escape.
So that was Noel Al-Maghafi reporting. The question now then is there a solution for Haiti's problems? Well, Rosbury Raymond is Country Director for Global Children's Charity Plan International. And I spoke to him a short while ago from Port-au-Prince.
A shock, it is something that I'm living on a daily basis. It is things that I'm hearing from my staff, from my colleagues, from other organizations, from the communities where we are working along Port-au-Prince. And I'm not that shocked, and it is really difficult. On our side at Plan International, we even open in some areas, in some sites, some a safe place where children can come and play and have some informal education and receive something to eat and supporting the family with cash, for example. It is all we can do for now, and supporting sometime in water and sanitation, etc. Yes, what I hear, the gun, etc., even from my house, I could hear when they are shooting as much as possible when I'm going to the office. That is the life that we're living, because the gang control 90% of the metropolitan area of Port-au-Prince right now.
So let's pick up on the gangs first then, as you mention it. You know, we heard in that report that the security forces are seemingly completely outnumbered, and despite the Kenyan-led and UN-backed security force, the gangs seem to have only increased their control over recent years. So what can be done?
First, in terms of information, I think the police, they may have 3,000 to 4,000 people at the police. With the Kenyan national 800, it's not more than 5,000. And the gangs are composed of 25 to 36,000 people, according to the UN report that we had. And we have the children. We did a study in the International, did a study in the southern part of the country. 5% of the boys that we met, they say that they are willing to go and join the gang. That is why we are pushing, working, and making a lot of support for them to say, to be in a safe place in the community with their family and supporting them.
Rosbury Raymond there speaking to me earlier from Port-au-Prince.
Distribution of the BBC World Service in the U.S. is made possible by American Public Media, producer and distributor of award-winning public radio content. APM, American Public Media, with support from Progressive Insurance with Snapshot. Learn more about a Snapshot at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Snapshot not available in California or from all agents.
The listener-supported service of the University of Tulsa, Public Radio 89.5, KWGS HD1, Tulsa.
Support for Public Radio Tulsa is provided by Elote Cafe and Catering in downtown Tulsa and at the Discovery Lab at 31st and Riverside. Elote is a woman-owned restaurant focusing on sustainable practices and offering a fresh Mex menu, margaritas, and catering.
Hello, you're with Newsday from the BBC World Service with Priya Rai and Rob Young.
As France moves to recognise a state of Palestine, we look at the humanitarian crisis that is causing so much international concern.
We'll also examine China's moves to buy farmland in Angola.
And more from the Pacific Islands on the ICJ climate change decision after the latest world news.
BBC News with Neil Nunes. Israel and the United States have condemned the announcement by President Macron that France will officially recognize Palestinian statehood. It would be the first major Western power to do so. Benjamin Netanyahu said the planned move would reward terrorism. The US said it was a reckless decision. The United States and Israel have recalled their negotiating teams from the Gaza ceasefire talks in Qatar. The US envoy Steve Witkoff accused Hamas of not wanting to reach a deal. Donald Trump and the head of the US Federal Reserve have publicly disagreed during a tour of the bank's headquarters. Jerome Powell contradicted the US president about the cost of the renovations. Thailand says 14 people were killed in border clashes with Cambodia on Thursday. The clashes have continued for a second day. Peruvian customs officials have seized a big consignment of mercury from Mexico, which they believe was intended for use in illegal gold mining in Bolivia. The trial of the former president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Joseph Kabila, is due to begin in Kinshasa on Friday. He's not expected to attend. Military court will hear charges including treason and murder linked to his alleged support for Rwandan-backed rebels. A Canadian court has found 5 ice hockey players not guilty of sexually assaulting a woman in a hotel room 7 years ago. The judge said she did not find the unnamed woman's evidence to be credible or reliable. The US jazz musician and band leader Chuck Mangione has died. He was 84. Joni was best known for his 1970s instrumental hit, Feel So Good. He won 2 Grammy Awards and recorded 30 albums. BBC News.
Cheers, Neil. Thanks very much indeed for that summary of the news. Hello, you're with Newsday from the BBC World Service with Priya Rai and Rob Young. Thanks for being with us today. Hope you're doing all right. Coming up this half hour, you're going to hear stories from Gaza, from Angola and from the Thai-Cambodia border. Sarah and I will be here with your sport, and she's looking ahead to a big weekend, a massive weekend of women's football. Your thoughts on all of those stories, welcome of course by WhatsApp or text. The number you need is +44 77 86 20 50 85.
First, as international concern grows about the humanitarian situation in Gaza, President Macron of France says his nation will recognise a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September. It comes as the US and Israel withdraw from ceasefire talks in Qatar over claims Hamas has shown a lack of desire to reach a deal. Israel bars international journalists from Gaza, but the BBC does have trusted freelancers working in the territory. BBC and other news organisations are warning that they are increasingly unable to feed themselves. Emil Nada in Jerusalem reports on the situation in Gaza.
Even a father's tenderness cannot ease Rahaf's hunger or treat her illness. Rahaf has a developmental condition affecting her eyes, but her health has deteriorated by the disappearance of fresh food, fruit, bread.
She weighed about 15 kilograms when the war started, but only 6.5 a week ago.
Shelves empty at home and at the hospital too.
I took her to the hospital. They've been looking for an infusion, but there's nothing. They can't find the veins either.
At Nasser Hospital in southern Gaza, some children have illnesses. Some used to be healthy, but all of them are suffering from hunger. The World Health Organization says it's counted over 20 children under 5 years old who've died from malnutrition in Gaza this year.
My whole body is shivering from the lack of food, and I'm breastfeeding too. How can I get them food? My kids keep crying around me. I don't sleep at night because they keep crying. I make them drink salt water to get to sleep. How can I provide for them? Until when will this suffering continue? Oh, people of the world, feed us. Feed our children and look to us with a merciful eye.
Now, the grip of hunger is reaching into each home, every tent. The poor, the middle class, and the once wealthy. 4 of the world's biggest media outlets, including the BBC, said they're desperately concerned for their journalists in Gaza, who are increasingly unable to feed themselves and their families. Israeli officials at the Gaza border maintained they facilitate the delivery of aid.
The responsibility of moving the aid inside Gaza, it's up on the humanitarian organization, and we help them as much as possible in order to do their job.
But those organizations say that even when they get Israeli permission to pick it up, their convoys often get shot at by the military. Amidst the blame game of responsibility, a system of restrictions and violent aid distributions is being overseen by Israel in Gaza, causing mass hunger and scenes of deadly starvation.
BBC's Emma Marder in Jerusalem reporting on the situation in Gaza.
China and Angola in southern Africa have struck a deal to develop large-scale soybean and corn farms in Angola. It's all part of China's push to boost food security as trade tensions with the United States continue. Farms will be financed by a Chinese state-owned company, and more than half of their output, 60%, will be exported to China. Let's speak now to Sanusha Naidu, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for Global Dialogue in South Africa, who studied China-Africa relations for many years. On the line now, welcome to Newsday. What do you make of this deal? And is it a good deal for Angola, both financially and in terms of its own food security?
Good morning. I think it's part of a bigger broader strategy that the Chinese have had for some time in terms of boosting their agricultural outputs, particularly in third countries, and boosting it in the context of food security, food sources, but also in terms of how do they now manage shipping lanes, particularly in the context of some of the trade tensions between the US and China and that impact that has on third countries. So most of the Chinese soybeans and other agricultural products that may be under some kind of compromise in Latin America could actually feed into how a country like Angola could play that kind of role in terms of defraying some of the costs there. Is it a good deal for China? Definitely in terms of how they want to source their food sources. But in terms of Angola, I think it could be both an opportunity but also have some challenges. Opportunity in the sense that it could actually boost some of the exports that Angola wants to move to China, or to be able to move away from oil dependency. But at the same time, it could have impacts on local farming practices, local farming industries, in terms of how the dominance of these Chinese farms or these Chinese-backed farms could actually create challenges at the local level.
Yeah, let's come on to the money end of things in just a moment. But on the food front, I mean, Angola does face climate shocks, doesn't it? As the planet warms. And so there are clearly longer-term concerns about food security. And here you've got a huge tract of land. 60% of the produce has to leave the country. I mean, is that going to go down well with Angolans?
Well, it's a difficult one, because this is a practice that's not just about food sources that leave the continent in terms of China. I mean, you've got other actors as well that have also kind of moved into the space of how do they secure their food security by exporting products from Africa into their markets. I think of the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia and others. But I think it does raise questions around this issue of what is the base of the agricultural sector in Africa, and in particular the baseline for how agriculture is not just an export-led growth product, but rather it is a policy also of subsistence farming, people feeding themselves and also contributing to a commercial market in order for a livelihood. So that kind of dynamic does raise questions around if 60% of agricultural products from Angola is to leave the country in order to feed or in order to be a food source for another country, it raises questions around that level of sustainability of subsistence farming in Angola, but also the agricultural food source for feeding Angola itself.
And what about the financial side of things? Angola's debt situation has been improving in recent years, but China has been accused for a number of years of saddling countries not just in Africa but elsewhere around the world with unaffordable debts. Does this work financially, economically for Angola?
Well, I think this is where you've got to also unpack what the Chinese model is around this. If you think of the oil back deal, it was actually linked to how much oil China would buy from Angola, but linked to how that will actually be about defraying the cost of the debt. Now, in this case, I think there may be other intricacies, but definitely it's that kind of resource-backed loan. So now in the case of agricultural products, it may be linked back to how much China is using that as a way to defray costs on loans and other kind of financial constraints that Angola may have. Similarly, China does this with other countries in terms of, for example, cocoa in Ghana is actually a resource-backed loan as well.
Just so I'm clear here, so you're saying that this is a way that Angola can help pay back its debts to China?
It's one way that it could help to pay back its loan to China. However, the question is, if it's just about exporting to China only 60% of these products, then it's not diversifying enough in order to export to the bigger global market, which can also help to address the debt repayment issues.
By Greg the economy. Thanks very much indeed, Solution Nandi there from the Institute for Global Dialogue in South Africa. Thanks very much.
You're listening to Newsday from the BBC World Service with Rob Young and Priya Rai. A reminder for you of some of our key stories this morning. Israel and the United States have both rejected France's decision to recognise Palestinian statehood in September. Palestinian officials and Hamas have welcomed the planned move. In a tense exchange, the head of the US Federal Reserve has dismissed Donald Trump's claim that costs for renovations of its headquarters have gone over budget. And as we're moving on to now, cross-border exchanges of firing between Thai and Cambodian forces are continuing into a second day, Rob.
Yeah, that long-running border dispute has intensified in recent days. Thailand says that 14 people, all but one of them civilians, have been killed, and media reports from both countries say there are battles near several temples along the shared border and at other locations. And in the past few minutes, the acting Prime Minister of Thailand, has said that the escalation is moving towards a war. This is Jonathan Head reporting from the Thai-Cambodia.
Rockets from the roadside in northern Cambodia and heading to Thailand. A smouldering border dispute between the two countries erupted. This shot on the Thai side took a direct hit, killing 6 people. Thousands of residents living near the border have been evacuated, some to makeshift concrete bunkers. These children were rushed out of their school mid-class to protect them from the rockets.
Well, we've been hearing the boom of artillery. That was another boom there. We're not sure what these booms are. We think they're possibly artillery or maybe Thai aircraft bombing Cambodian positions. There have been a number of casualties in this hospital, for example, which was struck by rocket fire early this morning. Many more, and deaths as well along the Cambodian border. This is a dispute ostensibly about a few slivers of forested land, but nationalist feeling and now armed tension has been built up so much on both sides of the border, it's very difficult for either government to de-escalate.
All along this border, people have had to leave. The sound of the Wushu rockets and almost constant gunfire can be heard through the trees for most of the day. Thailand is now sending more reinforcements. From both sides, there's little of the language of diplomacy being heard, only defiance.
Well, that was Jonathan Head reporting, and the clashes mark a big escalation of a dispute between the to Southeast Asian neighbours. It dates back more than a century. To talk a little bit more about it and what we know at the moment, news editor at TNN Online, Tospol Chaisatmarapol, joins us from Bangkok. Tospol, thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell us what we know is the latest? Because, of course, as we were just saying, we've heard from Thailand's acting Prime Minister that this could be a war.
Yes, it is not an official war yet, but the scene and the visual we saw yesterday was telling us that we are getting close to that. And this morning, actually, there's further escalation near the border between Thai army and Cambodia. But the sensation of the Thai people today, we're waking up to see that 40 civilians were killed and about 40 more injured from Cambodian heavy weaponry flying to villages and communities. And more than 100,000 people have fled and from about 11 attacked locations near Thailand and Cambodia border. And it is saying that the trigger of the conflict is that many Thai soldiers were injured by Cambodia landmine, which Thai army claim that is a newly laid landmine, even though the Cambodian side say that it's a landmine from previous war in the past 30 years. But the reason that the Cambodian army attacked and most of the people who were killed yesterday were Thai civilians is unacceptable for the Thai government and Thai people. And now we are feeling that today we have seen the visual that the Cambodia start firing the heavy weaponry again, and many people are evacuated from the as far from the border as possible.
Well, it's a two-way fighting over the border, if you like. I mean, Thailand and Cambodia both blaming each other for starting it for different reasons. And we've heard from Cambodia's leader writing to the UN Security Council that it's due to be meeting today, saying that it's asking for help to stop what it calls Thailand's aggression. So this has been ongoing. This is the latest. But can you just remind us of the background to the tensions between the neighbouring nations?
Yes, I have to tell you that we have expected that this situation will escalate to the scene that we saw yesterday today. Since the Cambodian government, especially the former Prime Minister released the recording of talk between him and President Shinawatra, which is about a month ago. And the trigger is that so many Thai soldiers patrolling the border in the Thai side were injured by the Cambodia landmine, which is unacceptable, which leads to the closure of the border gate and the escalation into the conflict and fighting yesterday morning, and including today as well. But Thai government say that they have armed foreign ministry authority at New York, and we attend to UNSC post-door meeting this afternoon, and we are following that closely because our Thai government claims that the Cambodia might violate the Geneva Convention, because the scene and evidence, pictorial evidence we saw yesterday is that Cambodian side attacked communities, villages, civilians, and especially the civilian hospital.
Okay, thank you for bringing us that. That's kind of the latest we're hearing at the moment from Bangkok, from the news editor at TNN Online, Tospol Chaisatmarapol. We're also being told that at least one civilian has died on the Cambodian side of the border. And as to the reasons there, we just heard a little bit about why Thailand claims that Cambodia started this current fighting across the border. Cambodia says that Thai soldiers initiated it when they violated a prior agreement to do with a temple that is near the border between the two nations.
Yeah, the Thai government spokesperson I see on the news wires is about to hold a press briefing. We'll bring you anything interesting and relevant from that, of course. You with Newsday on the BBC World Service. Sarah and I was here with news about not one, but two massive games this weekend.
Exactly, Rob. Exactly, Rob. You said it earlier. It's a busy weekend for football fans with two big finals taking place. First, let's talk about the European Women's Championship final between England and Spain that will take place on Sunday in Switzerland. Ahead of that game, the Lionesses and former Barcelona midfielder Kira Walsh says she hopes the Spanish players can enjoy victory was overshadowed after the then president of the Football Federation kissed Spain captain Jenny Hermoso without her consent.
The way Barcelona are, and they're always in and around the Champions League finals, I think, especially that club in particular, you know, they really are pushing women's football, but just for the girls this time. And as a friend and as another football player, I think for them just to go and enjoy this final, they play incredible football and they deserve to be there. So as a human being, I just want them to go out and just enjoy the game of football.
And Jorge Vildes, Spain's former manager who led La Roja to victory in 2023, will not be in Basel on Sunday, but he will be managing another team in a final this weekend. That is Morocco in the 2024 CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations final. 9-time champions Nigeria faced host nation Morocco on Saturday at the Stade Olympique in Rabat. Nigeria left it late to beat defending champion South Africa 2-1 to secure their spot in Saturday's final, while Vildes Morocco overcame Ghana 4-2 on penalties after the game ended 1-0 after extra time. But before that, Ghana and dethroned champions South Africa will battle in the third place match at the Stade Larbi-Zaouli in Casablanca later today. Head coach of Ghana's Black Queens, Kim Bjorkegren, said his side is determined to end Ghana's WAFCON campaign on a high. The game kicks off at 7 o'clock GMT. Meanwhile, and in football still, Alexander Isak has been left out of the Newcastle squad for their pre-season tour of Asia. It's understood the striker wants to explore his options for a move away from the Premier League club. A source has told BBC Sport that Liverpool are still interested in signing the 25-year-old. Lee Johnson is from the Newcastle United podcast True Faith, and he thinks the issue with keeping the player is down to affordability.
There would be no problem in Newcastle United paying the kind of wages that he's probably going to demand, but ultimately, like everyone that we've targeted so far this summer, Guemo, João Pedro, Ekitike, ultimately the likes of Liverpool can just pay more in terms of wages. We can't kind of do that at this moment in time. We certainly probably could, that wouldn't be a problem.
So Newcastle fans have a view clearly, but if he does go, it's going to cost money to replace him because he's absolutely key to the squad.
Yes. Are you sad that he's going?
He's not gone yet.
Not yet.
So let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see what happens. To have
a few weeks to go.
Exactly, until the 31st of August. Next to cricket, and the series ongoing between England and India, where the hosts had much of the play go their way on day 2 at Old Trafford yesterday in Manchester. Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett scored 166 for the first wickets, taking a huge chunk out of the tourists, 358, though they fell in the space of 2 overs. Oli Pope and Joe Root were able to take England to 225-2, 133 still behind at the close of play on day 2. Here's Crawley after the game.
I'm happy that I played. Obviously, you always want more, and you know, it's great batting out there with Ducky. We were loving it out there and putting some pressure on them. So yeah, we were really enjoying it out there. Obviously, you always want more, but yeah, they're happy.
And the legendary WWE wrestler Hulk Hogan has died aged 71 in Clearwater, Florida. Hogan suffered a cardiac arrest and was rushed to hospital where he died around an hour later. Hogan, whose real name was Terry Bollea, is perhaps the most iconic star in WWE's 5-decade history. Known for his distinctive blonde moustache and colorful headband, Hogan won 6 world championships and was included into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2005 by Sylvester Stallone. His catchphrase was, "Say your prayers and eat your vitamins." And we can end on this archive of Hulk Hogan ahead of one of his greatest matches against Andre the Giant.
I've seen the little Hulkamaniac. They're trading the prayers for vitamins. They're going to live forever. Hulkamaniac's going to live forever. And Andre the Giant physically destroyed me, physically wiped me out, physically took the belt. Maybe the little Hulk would believe that you got to play it straight, that you got to keep your head high, man. Andre the Giant, Hulkamania will live forever.
Sarah, thank you very much indeed. And on those 2 women's finals in the Euros and the WAFCON, commentary live on the BBC World Service if you're listening.
Exactly, all weekend we'll bring you both finals commentary.
We get BBC World Service.
Now, this week, a landmark decision by a top UN court, the United Nations Court, has cleared the way for countries to sue each other over climate change, including over historic emissions of planet-warming gases. Now, the unprecedented case at the International Court of Justice was the brainchild of a group of young students from low-lying Pacific Islands on the front lines of climate change. Now, they came up with the idea in their classroom, and one of them joins us now. Cynthia Hoonihu is originally from the Solomon Islands and now lives in Vanuatu and has been to The Hague and the International Court of Justice to hear that decision. Cynthia, can you first of all tell us what this ruling means to you and your home?
Yeah, so 6 years ago we looked around in terms of finding hope, especially when you come from frontline communities where it's very slow in terms of solution. So when we had the advisory opinion, we were very emotional because this is hope for us. This means hope to my people and especially frontline communities.
Now, when the ruling was made at the International Court of Justice, the judge said how actually, yes, okay, this is our opinion that, countries can sue each other, but it could also be very difficult to untangle or, pinpointing who is responsible for what. But we're also told that lawyers are looking for ways to use this, especially when it comes to compensation for some of the smaller nations, the nations like yours that are affected by climate change. So can you tell us a little bit about how this ruling might be used?
Yes, so firstly, I think it's very important for people to understand what we set out to do is to get clarity in terms of direction, and we all need to be on the same page. So this document, first of all, is something that every state can look towards as direction to course correct to the direction that we need to go. So yes, it can be used in terms of climate litigation, but overall we are all affected by climate change, so we need to be on the same direction. That's the most important key point I wanted to pull out here. And so this could help us, what are our obligations, and then we give ourselves a chance to live up to those obligations.
But I guess what I'm asking is, when it's a non-binding opinion, yes, it's from the International Court of Justice, which has global jurisdiction, but it's non-binding, and at the end of the day, it is an opinion of the court. So do you have faith that it will be used and respected?
This is the world's highest court, and yes, there is the nature of it of being non-binding. However, the laws that are being clarified in that advisory opinion are legally binding and are existing responsibilities that states have. The court is just affirming it. These are already countries have signed up to this, so it's not something new. We're not trying to create new laws here. We just want clarity so that we can go towards the same direction together. So in that way, we can, it's like a baseline or a blueprint where more concerted global effort in terms of climate action can happen.
So you're talking about the likes of the Paris Climate Agreement that was agreed to by countries around the world to, for example, to aim to keep temperature rising to less than 1.5% above that pre-industrial levels, the point at which industry really started from a man-made perspective, pumping out gases that can be seen as damaging for the climate. Cynthia, really good to be able to speak to you there, who is one of the people who's behind this idea to take this to the ICJ in the first place. You can read more about that if you head to our BBC News website. You're listening to Newsday on the BBC World Service with Rob Young and Priya Rice. Still plenty more to come.
In Gaza, the United Nations warns 1 in 5 people are at risk of starvation.
Before, there is some of reservoir. Now, no reservoir at all. That's why no food, no reservoir, meaning there is a death.
A report from a hospital in Gaza where supplies are depleted on the next morning edition from NPR News.
Tomorrow morning from 5 to 9 here on Public Radio 89.5.
Support for Public Radio Tulsa is provided by the George Kaiser Family Foundation, partnering with the Bob Dylan Center's concert Going Electric, an evening of Dylan songs circa 65, July 26th at Kane's Ballroom, featuring members of Sonic Youth, Wilco, and others. BobDylanCenter.com.
Public Radio 89.5, KWGS HD1,
Tulsa.
Hello and welcome to Newsday on the BBC World Service with Rob Young and Priya Rai.
President Macron says that France will recognise a Palestinian state when the United Nations General Assembly meets in September. This would make France the first major Western nation to do so.
The US has described it as reckless as, along with Israel, it also pulls its negotiators from ceasefire talks with Hamas, with seemingly little progress on ending the fighting in Gaza.
Also coming up, our correspondent joins us live from near the Thai-Cambodia border, where fighting has forced thousands of people to flee their homes.
And joining us from our business desk, Davina Gupta talks us through how things are looking for chip maker Intel and its plans to significantly reduce its workforce.
And we will look ahead to a big weekend for women's football. Who will be crowned champions of Africa and Europe? First, a bulletin of the latest world news.
Hello, I'm Neil Nunes with the BBC News. Israel and the United States have condemned the announcement by President Emmanuel Macron that France will recognize Palestinian statehood in September. The U.S. Secretary of State described it as a reckless decision which would serve Hamas propaganda. The Israeli Prime Minister said the move would reward terrorism. But the Palestinian Authority and Hamas have welcomed the move. Mohammed Taha is from the BBC Arabic service.
France is the first G7 country that would announce that in September. That means that the two-state solution is back on the table after the current Israeli government scrapped that possibility in the Israeli parliament a few months ago. And also in the UK here, the chief of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Emily Thornberry, confirmed that the UK should take a similar step.
Donald Trump and the head of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, have bickered on camera during a public tour of the central bank's $2.5 billion renovation project in Washington. Mr. Trump produced a letter which said the project costs had jumped to over $3 billion. Despite apparently being caught unawares, Mr. Powell dismissed the figure, saying it referred to a renovation that was finished 5 years ago.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
There have been further cross-border exchanges between the Thai military and Cambodian troops a day after deadly fighting broke out. According to the Thai authorities, at least 15 people, all but one of them civilians, have been killed. Dozens more have been hurt. In Cambodia, officials say one person has been killed. Jonathan Head is at a Thai evacuation center in Surin.
We left a hospital close to the border very late last night under a strict warning from the military saying they were expecting artillery barrages, and indeed, we've seen video of some of those. There was a lot of shell fire, and we could hear the boom of regular shells being fired. They've been going right through the night, a lot of gunfire as well. The problem is that both armies now are at loggerheads. Feelings have been heightened by the casualties on this side, and there's a lot of anger being fueled in the media in Cambodia, a lot of indignation.
Jeffrey Epstein's former accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell is to be questioned for a second day about the late financier's sex trafficking network. Maxwell was interviewed on Thursday by the U.S. Deputy Attorney General. She's serving a 20-year prison sentence for helping Epstein abuse young girls. Donald Trump is under increasing pressure to release further legal documents about Epstein. This is the World News from the BBC. Peruvian customs officials have seized a huge consignment of mercury, which they believe was due to be used for illegal gold mining in Bolivia. The toxic substance was found in a shipment of crushed stone that originated in Mexico. There's been a surge in small-scale gold mining across the Amazon in response to a sharp rise in the value of gold in recent months. United States regulators have given the media giant Paramount permission to merge with the film studio Skydance Media in a deal worth about $8 billion. The approval comes after Paramount subsidiary CBS settled a legal dispute and axed one of its shows. Here's Michael Daventry.
There was Kamala Harris's appearance last year on the news program 60 Minutes, which Donald Trump claimed had been deceptively edited to tip the scales to her. Paramount paid Mr. Trump $16 million to settle a lawsuit after the head of CBS News resigned. Then last week, CBS cancelled the popular chat show The Late Show, hosted by the staunch Trump critic Stephen Colbert. CBS said it was losing too much money. In both those cases, Democrats claimed Paramount was bowing to political pressure because the Trump administration could have vetoed the merger. The company has rejected those claims.
The trial of the former president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Joseph Kabila, is scheduled to get underway in Kinshasa on Friday. A military court will hear charges including treason and murder linked to his alleged support for Rwandan-backed M23 rebels, which he denies. 5 Canadian ice hockey players have been found not guilty of sexually assaulting a woman in a hotel room in Ontario in 2018. The judge said she did not find the unnamed woman's evidence to be credible or reliable. BBC News.
Thanks very much for that bulletin. Hello, you're with Newsday on the BBC World Service with Priya Rai and Rob Young. Thanks for being with us today. Coming up over the next half an hour, we will head to the Thailand-Cambodia border, where fighting between the two nations continues, and the acting Thai PM warns the clashes could develop into a war. Plus, we will ask what is on the mind of protesters in Tel Aviv as hopes dim for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. And we will hear from a 25-year-old Ukrainian Marine who was held prisoner by Russia for 3 years. Your thoughts on all of our stories welcome, of course, by text or WhatsApp. The number for them is +44 77 86 20 50 85.